Loren Weeks is the production designer for the Apple Plus limited series, The Crowded Room. I'm Matt Noble of Gold Derby, and I want to kick things off by asking you, Loren, what was one of the big challenges in approaching this series?
Oh, there's so many. There are so many challenges on this series. Maybe the first one that comes to mind is simply the time period. We start in 1967, 68 in upstate New York. There's a little bit of time of story we tell there, backstory, but majority of it is New York City, 1977 to 1979, and it's just challenging because you can't go anywhere without having to do something to it to remove the current day and take it back all those decades. So that in itself is always a challenge in a period piece, regardless of what period it is. Although some are, certainly they call 1980s, 1990s period, which to me was just yesterday. But even then, it's always a challenge to do with period shows.
Yeah. And I guess like with this series, how do the spaces that you're dealing with and the places that you have to sort of construct and things, how does that help inform the story and help inform the world?
Well, your choice of location or the sets you build, for any story should help inform the narrative. I mean, it's there to support the narrative. And of course, each situation, each scene is going to be different. Whether it's a family residence or a place where something dramatic happens. So it's just something you always have to be aware of, and try to pick locations or design sets that you feel are going to help that narrative.
Yeah. Was there what's your favorite thing about this show and this story?
Well, I think the subject itself is really fascinating. It always comes back to the script, and if the story is there, then it's really all about the story. And I loved how this was approached, because we've seen many productions that think they're dealing with dissociative identity disorder. We can do spoilers here, right? I think
you like would it Lauren?
Yeah. Okay. What was used to be referred to as multiple personality disorder. It's been around for years, and so often it gets muddied with other mental conditions, never quite clear. And what I really appreciated in Akiva Goldsman's script, first few I read, was that it was trying to be very sensitive and honest with the subject, even though he did take artistic license with it. But I think it turned out to be a really effective storytelling technique.
And with the sets, like, you've sort of got, since it's sort of a lot of the show is looking back through interviews, and you get to go to a lot of different places in sort of time and in the life of your main character. But at the same time, it's sort of all grounded in that room where the interviews take place.
Yes.
Everything stems from there. What was the most important thing you were looking for in the interview room or the interrogation room or whatever you want to call it?
Yeah, we called it the interview room. That's how it was scripted, and that's how we referred to it. First off, what struck me about it was when I sort of read the entire scope, we had, I think, 12 full days of shooting in there, which can be a play, between two actors sitting at a table. And that can be the kind of thing where directors go to die, because there's no movement there. There's very little movement, and there's very little difference in angles. So I really worked to give it some visual interest. We didn't want to tip our hand. It was very important to Akiva that we didn't tip our hand that this was a prison or a mental institution or anything like that. So we wanted it to feel very institutional, yes, but nondescript, that you wouldn't go, oh, he's in a prison, or oh, that's a mental institution, or anything like that. And the interview room is supposed to be at Rikers Island. So drawing upon reference images of Rikers Island, using sort of the same kind of tile and architecture of it. Very simple finishes in there, really just tile. The thing about prisons and schools, high schools, is two very separate architectural types, but are also built kind of the same way, that they're meant to be indestructible. So you use a lot of hard materials in there. And I gave it so I want to give room in there for the directors to have a little bit of play. I wanted to open it up with windows, which are on a half of a octagon, because I wanted the sense of the outside world being there, always present during these interviews. So we don't know he's incarcerated, but you kind of get the sense that he's definitely in some sort of an institution. And then the big wide world is out there, just out of reach of him. So those were some of the things, just looking to bring to the set and keeping it visually interesting for 12 days of shooting between two people talking.
It was like really interesting, the scene, or it's once or twice where Raya is setting up the room before the interview, and
yes.
how important that space is for her as well.
Yeah.
Just getting her, probably getting herself mentally prepared for the interview, but also making sure it's a place where he'll be comfortable to
That's right.
get what she wants. And
that's right. And she wanted to make it her, bring a little something to it that made it hers. Because it's very impersonal, that space. There's nothing there that would suggest that anybody actually inhabits it on any kind of regular basis.
Yeah. No, so that was really cool. You also get to we have New York City, and we have London, and we have other places. How did you go?
That's what I'm saying. This show was full of challenges. Yeah. I mean, when I got script number, was it 4, I guess? I'm going, wait, London? 1979 London? It's like, are we going there? No, we can't afford to go there. Oh, thanks. Okay, so we're going to do 1979. We're going to do Soho 1979 here in New York. Thank you very much.
Oh,
yeah. That was a wonderful challenge too. Soho, London. And initially, reading the script, and this is, any production designer will tell you this. There are certain kinds of things you read in a script and you go, we're going to have to build this. And you go to production and say, we're going to have to build this. And they go, no, you got to find it. We don't have the money to build it. So you spend all this time looking for this needle in a haystack. And maybe the best you can do is sort of piecemeal things like, well, we can shoot this little piece here, and then go across town or go to Brooklyn or something and shoot this little piece. And you hobble these things together, and then you take your director and your DP out, and they're going, this doesn't work. And then they talk to production, and the next thing you know, production calls you and says, we have to build this. So we went through that with Soho London, and our wonderful locations department found this very, one of the architectural elements of Soho is the streets are extremely narrow. And we couldn't really find that. We couldn't really get a sense of that on any location. They found this not quite an alley, kind of like just this connecting piece of alley between 2 industrial buildings in Williamsburg, New York. And we went in there and dressed the whole thing. So on one side of this long alley it was brick buildings on both sides. There were windows, so we utilized the windows and backlit them, and we built a couple of fake entrances and put signs out there that said, rooms for rent by the hour or whatever. And on the other side, we literally built about 20 storefronts that were no more than about 15 inches deep, just deep enough to have a little setback for the door and display windows and electrical, because we had dozens and dozens of neon signs and signs saying striptease and naked girls and all this. But it turned out really great. I mean, we were all really pleased with the results. So
there's like a lot of contrast in this in this series, because you go from that interrogation room to the big wide world out there. How conscious were you of those sort of contrasts of how?
Always. You go from that very controlled, calm environment into the real world, the outer world, and his story. And his story was, there's so much going on with his other identities, and granted, a lot of people figure it out very early, but still, it just, there's kind of a wild element to it. There's Soho, London. There's danceteria. There's meeting dangerous characters in a park at night. Just a lot of great contrast, and it was a lot of fun to play with that for sure.
You're right. It's his story. How much, when you were thinking of places and designing and building and all that sort of stuff, how much were you like wanting to be true to the world of that time, and how much did you want to be true to his perspective of the world at that time?
Yeah, that's always a balance. For me, that's always a balance, because I like to be honest about that kind of stuff as much as I can. And Akiva was a real stickler for authenticity. He really didn't like to take liberty with design. He wanted, if he pushed and pushed and pushed to get us, make sure we had the research to verify. We would present locations for him, photographs of various places which we thought could work for the time and place. And he would be like, where's your research? You've got to show me what this looks like. In that, you got to remind us all, and for those of us who weren't there, Akiva and I were there in those years. We're close in age. You have to do that. So we definitely were veered more to the authentic. And Danceteria was one of those that really I lost a lot of sleep about, frankly, because he was such a stickler and so adamant that it had to be authentic. And whereas you can find a lot of research photos about Studio 54, and you can maybe find some that say they're Danceteria, but you never quite know, because those photographs tend to be about the celebrities who are there and not the environment. And then again, our fabulous locations department, run by Rob Coleman, located these two women who were actually part of Danceteria and helped design, I think it was the second one. There were like 3 incarnations of Danceteria. And suddenly I understood how they did it. They were my resource. I could talk to them. I could ask them questions. And suddenly it became clear what I needed to do. And there were people, again, of my generation who walked into that set and go, wow, this is Danceteria. So.
What, Loren, what for you, was there a set or a film or something or a series that made you want to get into production design?
Probably, I can't say that there probably was, because I started off in architecture. I did that for about 13 years. And then my younger brother and I started making some short films and writing scripts. And I never really liked architecture and was looking for an out. So I decided to get into production really just to make contacts for the writing and that kind of stuff. And I kind of stumbled onto production design and art, the art department. I did my first movie was David O. Russell's first, finance film, I guess, Flirting with Disaster with Ben Stiller and Rosanna Arquette, and Kevin Thompson was the production designer on that. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. And I've got this skill set. So that's really how I got into it. Never looked back. It was kind of like, I didn't even know that job existed. Probably 2 years before that.
Yeah.
I had no clue. So.
Yeah. And what drew you into the crowded room? What made you what sort of appealed to you as you sort of took on this role?
Well, the opportunity to work with Akiva Goldsman. He's just a fantastic writer and producer. He directs. I didn't know the name when I, was called about this project, frankly. So I looked him up on IMDb, and I'm going through his list of credits, and I was just floored by how many of the projects he's been involved in I love. Some of my favorite shows and films. I mean, when I saw that, it's like, I really want this job. And of course, like I mentioned before, it was just beautifully written and very, very sensitive and brilliant, I thought.
Yeah. Oh, that's awesome. Did you have a favorite moment when filming? Like something or when building?
On this show or any show?
Yeah,
or
on this show.
On this show. Well, I always love, I don't spend a whole lot of time on a set.
Yeah.
I will go in the morning or in the afternoon, whenever the company arrives at the new set or location. Make sure I walk through with the director and, everything's okay. And I hang out typically till the first shot, but then I go because I've got other things to do, like the next day's work. But I always love it when people see the set for the first time. And I love it when actors look around and go, oh yeah, my character lives here, or my character works there. I love building scenery. I just love walking onto a stage when the crews are building at any time, any phase. So those tend to be my moments. It's in prep. That's my job, is prep.
Yeah.
Making sure everything's ready to go when the camera arrives, and hopefully no problems.
Yeah. Were there any big problems in this one?
Oh yeah.
What was one problem?
Oh, wow. All right, opening scene, which takes place in Rockefeller Center, which was initially scripted for Times Square. And we did a scout of Times Square when Akiva came to town, and I guess you just don't realize until you actually walk with the idea of, okay, now we have to take all this stuff away and make it 1979, 1977, that you realize that's just a massive, massive task, because there's nothing left. I mean, those buildings are still there, a lot of them, but they've been completely covered with electronics and neon and M&Ms and everything else. So we went to Rockefeller Center, and Rockefeller Center it was difficult. There was only, just with the amount of time they would allow us, scheduling, COVID. We kept pushing the date of shooting it. It was just so much work. And then on the day we showed up to shoot, one of our actors, our main two, had COVID, and we had to double for that for a bunch of scenes, and then go back later and reshoot. So that was just one of those kind of ongoing problems for months and months.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, Loren, thank you so much for speaking with us today. All the best for the upcoming
thank you.
season, for The Crowded Room. And people watching this interview, you can go to goldderby.com to follow all the awards coverage this season. Thanks so much, Loren.
You're very welcome. Pleasure to be here.